Hello everyone, welcome to Scorcher Toys at anymoon.com's review of Bandai's original high metal VF-1A toys. This is a follow-up to a separate video I have that covered the VF-1J toys. The VF-1As were released in April 2011 for 5,750 yen inclusive of tax. As Tamashii exclusives, they came in brown shipper boxes and shipped only to Japanese residents. So if you're shopping on the secondhand market or the secondary market, you should expect to pay a little bit of a premium. Inside the box, you get a lot of great stuff, including 3 display stand adapters, 1 for each mode, 3 landing gears, 2 rear, 1 front, a heat shield, 2 intake covers with turbine detail, 4 sets of Do You Remember Love style missiles, a gun, 3 left hands, 2 open posed, 1 fist, 2 right hands, 1 fist, 1 holding the gun grip, a set of wings with hard points on them to accommodate those missiles. Underneath the tray, you'll find instructions, and you'll also find a second box with 2 more rear landing gears. That's because the ones in the tray are TV-style landing gears, which is obviously incorrect for this toy. So Bandai gave you a little pamphlet apologizing for the mix-up and giving you Do You Remember Love style landing gears in that second tray. The Kakazaki toy does come with 1 extra to make it a little bit more appealing, since obviously the character wasn't particularly appealing. It is a sleeve that comes bundled within the box. Can't even tell it's there. When you unfold it, it can house all of the Do You Remember Love style original high metal releases, including the VF-1S Fokker Strike toy. So once you put them all together, you put the sleeve on top, it will look like this. A nice way to hold all your high metal Do You Remember Love toys in one spot. So we'll start with the landing gear when we start talking about our compromises. Now this toy is only 16 centimeters long in fighter mode. That makes it a roughly 190 scale. To put that in comparison to a Yamato V2, those are 24 centimeters long, so 8 centimeters longer. Obviously going to give you a lot of optionality that you don't have on a toy this small. Now, one of the compromises Bandai made were these landing gears that are removable pieces on the legs that expose peg holes. So we've taken the back off, take the front off. You're going to take these separate landing gear pieces. Now, the front landing gear didn't have any paint on it, so clearly there's no issues there. Would have been nice if they painted the little dot on the front, but they didn't. The wheels are not rubber. The tow bar is not articulated. Everything is just painted plastic. Silver and black, that is. So there we go. So that's what the landing gear looks like when it's attached. Now we take our other landing gears for the back, and you can see there's a red stripe on the front, but there's a black stripe on the legs. So when we go ahead and install this landing gear, it looks just bizarre. So that's why Bandai felt compelled to give us those replacement landing gears. Now, with the landing gears attached, I can show you that if you had the missiles installed, it's going to be really difficult to notice that there's any issue with those landing gears. So, depending on how you're displaying the toy, it might not actually be that big a deal that you have the red stripe on there. But obviously, you have the option to go ahead and pull out those black stripe landing gears, which is great. Now, another thing we need to address is these are called high metal toys. There's only really metal in the feet and in a couple joint spots, so it's totally a misnomer. Do not fall for it. You have optional wings. So let's go ahead and pull our wings off. Just pull away from the body. And here are the new wings with those hard points on them. Now, this would be a part that I would pull off the flat wings and never install them again. Here, I've got my missiles already installed on this wing. We'll just go ahead and do that. The missiles that come with the toy, obviously, Do You Remember Love style missiles? They peg in pretty securely. Not an issue there. So there we go. So go ahead and you can twist them when they're on there. They stay nice and tight, so that's good to see. You also have the ability to pop off these front intake pieces, and then we can get these optional turbine pieces and put those on instead if we're going for an atmospheric combat look, obviously. Now the gun that comes with the toy has a removable grip. Once we've removed that part, we can collapse it, and then we can open up the arms, fish in the hook, and then push everything back together again, and now that will stay on nice and secure as well. That landing gear I clearly did not press on very well, but the landing gears will, they will be able to knock off, as you clearly have seen, but generally they stay on well enough where it's not a frustrating issue. So there you go. There are your optional parts installed in fighter mode. Fighter mode works really well on these toys. They're very solid, even despite that wing popping off and then popping back on again with hard points. It stays on and it has plenty of friction. So no concerns there. It's nice and stiff. It's not wobbling around too much. Again, those missiles stay on nice and firm. The landing gears, for the most part, as long as you don't bump them too hard, will stay on there. Everything very nicely hold together. There are pegs that hold the backpack together. There's arm pegs. There's lots of stuff that is just made to make sure that this toy feels as solid as possible. And though there isn't much metal, that metal in the feet does give it a little bit of heft to make it satisfying to hold. You don't get an opening canopy. Instead, the canopy pops off, which you could see there is the pilot figure. The Do You Remember Love style pilots, much better looking than the TV version in the VF-1J review I did. Those pilots were mysteriously undersized for some reason. But that's about it. There's no other real gimmicks to speak of in this mode. But you do get 3 display stand adapters. So let's go ahead and check that out. These toys don't come with display stand, which is a huge shame, since the display stand helps avoid many of the faults with the landing gears for the people that really don't like the idea of swapping landing gears out. But it does come with this display stand adapter, and to put it on, you're just going to thread it through if you've got the gun attached. It's actually a lot easier if you don't have the gun attached. You're going to go ahead and slide it back. Now the gun should pop off on me here, and I'll have to put it back in. There we go. Get it back in as I put in these pieces here, and then just pinch everything tight again. There we go. So now the display stand adapter is on the toy. Missile's a little bit askew. I can take, this is a Trident, Tamashii Trident display stand. Rotate those guys back. Put this guy on the front. And there, now I can have a sweet Skull Squadron flying out display stand. So that's pretty neat. Let's go ahead and move on to Gearwalk mode. Transformation to Gearwalk mode is relatively painless. There's no part swapping that happens except for that gun. So if you had the gun installed in fighter mode, you're going to extend it now, and you could either take the fist that has the gun grip molded into it, like so, or you can take your gun, extend it, and just put that grip back in. Now the toy does have hands installed, integrated into the toy. They're kind of rubbery, they're relatively small. You can go ahead and put the gun directly in and it will grip fair enough. Like I said, it's kind of a rubbery hand, so it actually does a decent job holding the gun. Or you could take the hand, you can go ahead and pop it off entirely and go ahead and install that fixed posed hand with the grip, and that will be like that. And that'll obviously be more secure than the version without the fixed post hand attached. But again, both do a perfectly fine job holding the gun. Now, another thing you will see when you get to Gearwalk mode, it's your first chance to really see more of the faults besides the rather small integrated hands. And what you might have are some loose joints. In particular, all of my toys have a very loose left shoulder. That's just a ball joint. In fact, it might pop off on you during transformation. So obviously you could apply a little bit of clear nail polish or something to stiffen that up. I also have a very loose knee on my Hikaru toy. So the build quality on these is a little bit suspect. Obviously it's far superior to like Toynami's 1/100 toys, but it's definitely not in the same line as Yamato's V2s. Now again, no display stand is included, but if you have a Tamashii display stand around, you do get a Gearwalk adapter. You just attach that adapter back towards the base of this metal bar here, and it'll lock right into position, and then just put it right on your Tamashii display stand, and there you go. You could have a little bit more fun with what the legs are doing, and have some fun posing it in your display cabinet. So build quality issues aside, the high metal toys do Gearwalk mode very well. They are one of the few, if not only 1/100 toys or thereabouts, that has the extending foot gimmick, which then allows you to angle the foot way back and open it up and get some nice aggressive sweep to the legs. You also have the ability with the shoulder joint to bring it down a little lower, and this allows you to get that clearance you need for the wings. So you don't have the shoulders constantly bumping the wings, even if you try to extend those wings fairly far out. So it does all of those things well. It also holds together very well. Again, those missiles not moving anywhere, but also the hip intake staying well plugged in. So all of those things, good to see. It still handles this very well. Again, hopefully you don't have too many looseness issues like I did with the arms and that one knee. Let's move ahead and check out Factoid. As usual, I encourage you to check out my separate transformation video. For you sticklers of perfect transformation, here's a little Cliff Notes version. The toy, this is how it would transform without part swapping. Obviously there's a clear canopy and a downward facing pilot there. What you should do is remove the canopy glass and instead install this heat shield. You can see it's got a slot at the top that receives a hook from the chest, comes down, hooks into place, and there you go. Now you have Factoid mode. If you were using the turbine intake detail pieces, you would pop those off and install these closed vent pieces on top of the hips. If you had your hardpoint wings on, you could replace them now with the wings without hardpoints because the missiles will not fit in Factoid mode. But what I have noticed is that my wings in Factoid mode without the hardpoints are fairly loose. Now that would be very easy to fix with a little piece of clear tape or some clear nail polish, but what I've found is that the hardpoint wings generally have enough stiffness where it is not an issue. And here you go, I've got one hardpoint wing on and one no hardpoint wing on, and you can see how little the hardpoint actually detracts. So my advice to you would be to put the hardpoints on these toys immediately and then never consider the no hardpoint wings again. Let's talk about the differences between the High Metal R and the High Metal toy. And here we have a mass production High Metal R toy and the original High Metal VF-1A toy. Now you can see the original toy has some black detail paint on the back and underneath the chin area, which is very nice to see. That didn't make it to the High Metal R line, so that's a little disappointing for High Metal R. But the High Metal R has a much bigger head, and it has a little gimmick where you push the laser back and it pushes the visor forward, and that allows that bigger head to actually rest in fighter mode, so that's pretty cool to see. The High Metal R toy also has a head on a ball joint, which allows just a little bit of left-right action. So also another positive in that respect. Okay, here we have a VF-1S from the High Metal R line, and you can see it's a lot more gray than the white of the original High Metal line. Another difference is the metal in the hinge here that you could see. Originally that was plastic, and what that does is it eliminates the looseness in these arms. These are incredibly stiff arms on the High Metal R line, where you saw I had some floppiness on the original High Metal line. And that also extends to these wings. Very loose on the original High Metal line. These are the no hardpoint wings on the High Metal R line, and they're now pretty stiff. So is that going to change with age? Who knows? But right now the HMR toy definitely feels a lot more solid. The HMR toy also has a removable nose cone, and that facilitates the GBP armor being installed on the toy, although it hasn't been sold separately. So as far as accessories go, the HMR toys all universally pretty much come with more accessories than we saw with the original High Metal line, and that pretty much caps off the differences between the two. One of the great things about the High Metal line is that the toys are relatively cheap, which makes you less afraid of handling them, and they reward you for this by being pretty fun to play with. So from an articulation standpoint, your head, left and right, up and down, and the neck plate in there too, you can kind of use that to get more extreme poses. You have the ability to bring the gun forward or back. Shoulder goes all the way around, arm comes out at the shoulder, and there's a twist at the bicep. You have a double jointed elbow and a ball jointed hand. I've got one of the optional hands on there right now. Moving our way down, we have the hips, and if we bring the wings open, you can go all the way back with the hip, all the way forward, and you can extend the hips to get really aggressive outward poses or really awkward inward ones. Moving along, you have the gear walk joint, and you have a knee, and let you get that range of motion there, or come forward with it. Obviously that was the gear walk position there, and it also locks well into place. You have a rotation point at the knee, you have the ability to extend the legs, and as I showed you in gear walk, get way forward, way back, and that front toe is articulated, left or right, so you can open it up, get a really wide stance, and then bring it kind of in to make that stance look a little bit more natural. So overall, a lot of fun to handle these toys. They've got enough weight at the base that they stand up very well. You will have lots of fun getting them in just the right pose. Here is the Factoid display stand adapter. To install it, you're just going to pick your toy up, spread the wings, plop it in underneath the hips. You can close your wings. You need to have your display stand without any sort of attachment on the top of it because there is a peg that it slots into. And there you go. Now you can have fun posing your toy without any fear of it toppling over. So obviously this toy has some flaws, some compromises. One thing I haven't pointed out yet, but the chest pops out a little bit too easily on my Hikaru toy. So there are some things that it definitely could do better, and some of you might be wondering, should you get the Toynami 1100 toy instead? It's cheaper, it's more readily available, and it's almost the same size. My answer to that would be no. There's nothing as satisfying about the Toynami toy. It doesn't look nearly as good in any mode. It doesn't handle nearly as good in any mode. So I would say no, you will definitely spend more on the high metals, but you would feel like you got a better value. The Toynami certainly has a place for some people. It's very cheap. You can modify it to overcome a lot of its durability issues. Like this toy is brand new out of the box, and you can see it's got cracks already in these caps in the shoulder. So again, it's got its purposes. But if you're looking for a great VF1 toy, that's not it. And these high metal toys will scratch that itch for you. So, should you wait for high metal R versions of these VF-1A toys in particular? Probably. I got to imagine Bandai is going to revisit them, and they're going to do it in the right color, and they're going to give us the updated head mechanisms. So, if you're at all on the fence, I would say go ahead and wait. If you want to grab them now, certainly a good toy. I would say worth a pickup. Visit anymoon.com for my full article, and as always, thanks for watching.